Jazz clubs around the world are sitting empty, but jazz musicians will always have great music and stories to share. And since jazz fans aren't able to get out to hear great music, we will deliver jazz to you at home. Welcome to Jazz Home Delivery with Tim Tamashiro. Hello, welcome to Jazz Home Delivery with Tim Tamashiro. So happy that you could be with us here this evening as we're part of the TD, JazzYYC International Jazz Days Virtual Festival. 28 days in a row, and we're over halfway done already. Boy, time is flying. I can't believe it. We're representing 56 artists during that 28 days, and very, very happy to be here with you. Tonight's guests, we're welcoming our friends Jeremy Coates, bassist here in Calgary. He's a jazz improvisationalist, a composer as well, and we're also welcoming from New Jersey, Tarry, 5-time Juno Award winner and recent Peabody winner. That's pretty thrilling. So here's all three of us here together in the same room, so to speak. Gentlemen, nice to see you. Jeremy, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Appreciate it.
Chris, it's so nice to see you as well. I know it's a little bit later out there, a couple hours later, but hopefully the sun is still shining. Or is it dark out there now?
Oh, it's dark. Outside my studio, it's pitch dark. Bears, everything. It's great.
We're so well. You grew up in Calgary, so you know that the sun stays up till about 10 o'clock this time of the year. So I guess it's not so lucky out there in the New Jersey, New York area. Thank you both for being here. We have lots of interesting stuff to talk about. Jeremy, we're going to talk about your very unique way of teaching your students with a 6-string bass. He plays chords underneath with the students. It gives them a nice lift and gives them a little roadmap to go. We're going to talk to you about that. Chris, We're going to talk to you about all sorts of interesting things, musical and podcast-wise. I'm going to start with you, Chris. Jeremy, will you excuse me for a second?
Sure.
All righty, here we go. I'm pushing a couple of buttons here. Very nice to have you here with me, Chris. Tarry.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Appreciate it.
It's fun. You live in a world now where you are in your studio, in your backyard, so you don't have to put up with crazy 3-hour-long commutes into the city. You can literally just walk out in your slippers and a cup of coffee and be at work in about 3 minutes, right?
Yes, there's no bathroom in here, so I do have to make, during the day some trips inside. But other than that,
how uncivilized.
I know. It's tough.
I'm sure you're doing just fine out there. This studio is for a variety of projects, musical and also in the podcast world. So you have a podcast company called Gen Z, available now, and you're making all sorts of interesting content for family programming and for kids. Tell us about your company.
It's a podcast production company. We do we probably have about 15 shows in production, a staff of about 15 to 20 people, depending on time of year. And we make sort of shows that aren't your typical podcast. They're like old radio plays. So, basically TV shows, but for your ears. Yeah. So lots of sound design, all music created for each individual show. Write and create all the stories and all the stuff, and it's basically it's kind of like a TV production company, except for we make them for podcasts.
And you're telling stories to family and to kids. One of those shows is called Mars Patel. What's that show all about?
That was our first show. That was about 3 years ago. That kind of happened randomly. As a musician, I've always been a writer as well, publishing short stories and different things for years, sort of quietly. And so my two partners and I that eventually started Gen Z, we sort of met at a writers group, and we met and we started coming up with this show. It was right around the time it's very sort of Stranger Things-esque. That show off of Netflix. And it's funny, we had written the show and finished it, and Stranger Things came out. We were like, oh no, I can't believe this is like similar to what we were doing, And it just happened to be that Stranger Things becoming a huge hit was a huge boost for us too, because people were looking for stuff, other avenues to sort of explore similar stories. So,
Yeah.
but we had no idea that it was, that was coming out, or that we were just had our heads down making this show. We put it out ourselves and got really lucky, and it ended up winning a Peabody for the second podcast in history, only
That's incredible.
after Serial. That podcast Serial that broke
Yeah.
podcasting wide open. We were the second ones to win. Yeah, so
That's pretty interesting. And now you spend your time not only producing the music for your podcast, but you also write some of the shows. Is that right?
yeah, I have two partners. One, my partner Ben Strauss, he's the CEO of the company, and then my other partner, I'm in charge of all the post production, all the music, all the sound design, and we create the stories together. My other partner is David Kreisman. He's the head writer. He's got a couple Emmys. He was big time TV showrunner.
Oh.
And so we create the shows together. And in the early days, yes, the three of us wrote all of it. But now it's becoming such a bigger operation. Dave oversees a team of various writers that sort of, after we put the outlines together, they're pretty detailed outlines, and then they write the scripts and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
and then in the same way that I oversee, Dave will write a few episodes, and then the same way I will be doing music on many of the shows, but then also oversee a team of composers.
It's fascinating, the similarities between the podcasting world and the music world. And now, I guess anybody could really fire up a podcast. Not that it's going to become a Peabody winner or anything along those lines, but this is the reality of the technology right now, is that you could literally do all this stuff. In fact, you're telling me about the fact that you have some people who are doing voiceovers, and you've pulled together kits with iPads and USB mics, and you send it to them so that they can do the work for you. I mean, it's really come down to that.
It is
entry barrier.
It is. The thing is in today's day and age, and even if this wasn't happening, that really it's about, just what we're doing here too. It's about content, and if you can create content that is of value, people are going to enjoy it, and you can leverage that content in a bunch of different ways, So our shows, one of our big things is we get big audiences for our shows on podcasts, and then they become TV shows.
Oh.
So it's much easier to sell a podcast that has a couple million listeners, and you don't have to have somebody read the script. They can actually just listen to the show and go, I see this as a TV show. And so that's, our first TV show launches on Disney Plus on Friday.
Holy cow.
So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
In what period of time has this kind of gone from, I have an idea for Mars Patel, to now all of a sudden Peabody and Disney Plus? It's
been 3 years. It's been 3 years. And you and I were talking earlier, I'm sort of just lucky that, because I've been playing and performing the entire time as well, just being a sideman bass player, that I'm used to, although haven't had time to put out records like I used to because of the business. But in this crazy, weird time we're living in right now, I'm just sort of fortunate, I'm just fortunate to be busy doing this, because it turns out that podcasting is one of the things that's COVID proof.
It turns out, right? Yeah.
So I'm just sort of, I guess I'm just counting my lucky stars every time I'm in the studio here during the day. And the hard part has been figuring out how to continue our production teams producing remotely and stuff like that. So
yeah,
that's been the big challenge. But we're sort of meeting it. Cut down our schedule a little bit production wise, but not much. We're forging through every day.
And then where does music? Where do you find your joy in music then at this time? Because you're composing for the shows, which would be a treat, I would imagine. But you're not out playing live, obviously.
Yeah, I think right now it's composing for the shows. I'm doing a lot. I'm doing a couple of TV shows too, just like doing. I've always sort of done a little bit of music for TV, television, and stuff. So. I've always really had an interest in film scoring and all that kind of stuff as well. So I always sort of did that in the background whenever gigs came up, or people I started out ghostwriting for a couple of big composers in California, and that that taught me a lot, and that sort of led me into figuring out how to do it for the shows.
Yeah.
One of the things we do, we don't like to say we make kids shows, because we don't. We make shows that are sort of shows that are for co-listening for any age. We treat it very much like there's no sex and violence and all that sort of stuff, but they are shows that are scary for kids, and they're shows that are challenge kids. We challenge kids to listen above their age, and the music is very similar. The music we make for the shows is all, we say a lot that it's like producing for a 1-hour HBO drama. So we treat it very much like we're scoring an adult TV show.
Yeah.
And it's like we're writing an adult TV show. I mean, you can say Stranger Things is a kid's show, but it's not really a kid's show.
No, it's not really a kid's. It has kids in it, but it tells. So
all of our shows have kids in
Universal,
it. Universal, Kids can hear themselves in the roles, but we definitely force them to listen up.
Yeah. So now we're not only talking story, we're not only talking music, but you're talking post-production and sound effects and the whole ball of wax. You said that it takes about 50 hours per 10 minutes of finished content. What an astounding amount of time.
It is. That was in the early days. It may have come down a little bit now, but it's definitely 40 to 50 hours of work. And that includes the creation of the shows and the writing and the recordings.
Yeah.
It may actually be more right now, because our production times have had to scale wider, because, typically we go in and record an entire season in 2 days into a studio, and now, we get a cast of 6 or 7 people and we record that in 2 days, and we've got 80% of it sort of pieced together, before we hit into the voice edit. But now we're doing everybody individually. It takes longer time. It takes longer in post to put everything in the right spots. We're recording it much more like they do animation,
Yeah, for sure. It seems, as you're describing, all the stuff that goes into a production, it seems like this is an ongoing, continuous recording of an album.
Yes.
Because it's managing time, it's managing people, it's managing resources, and getting it all kind of.
I've never really thought about it, but it is. It's like a nonstop. It's like you're recording a nonstop record, because also, especially when we've got 3 or 4 shows in production at once. So, it started out just the 3 of us, and now we wouldn't be able to do what we do without having the right people, and that's all. I've had to learn a lot about managing people, and not being the guy because usually I'm the guy that tries to do all of it himself.
Yeah.
And just being, it's a huge exercise, as I'm sure the 3 of us can attest to.
Yeah.
To letting go, you need to let people do what they're good at.
Yeah, for sure.
And gently guide.
So you were telling us just before we started the show here that you went on a Zoom meeting with about 100 of New York's finest bassists the other night.
Yeah,
that's really special that you got a chance to do that, and I'm sure there are many laughs at everybody's expenses, because that's what we musicians do.
Yeah.
But what dawned on me as soon as you said that is I think it's lovely that the bassists are all hanging out together, because you never get to see each other. Do you?
No. I mean, we go to each other's gigs. New York is a pretty phenomenally tight little bass scene, and I've been fortunate to sort of be a part of it, and in whatever sort of ways. But I mean, everybody's very supportive of each other. Everybody knows each other. Everybody goes out to gigs, tries to catch up what everybody's doing. So it was nice. It really did feel like a sort of like family reunion. And they have these things here. Mike Visaglia, who's a bass player in town here, does a lot of Broadway shows and different things. He organizes a bass hang every month at a restaurant in Manhattan. Yeah. So, here you go. It's, Willie and sometimes Anthony Jackson and, different people. Everybody just comes out and we all eat nacho chips and talk about bass. and strings. It's so super nerdy, but it's great.
It sounds amazing. I'm so happy that you get a chance to be able to go and do that because, I mean, talk about, like-minded people getting together about like-minded things. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And just
And
for
it's fun,
friendship's sake.
people don't come. People might come like once a year, and so you go and you get this random spattering, and you catch up with people. And that's what the Zoom call felt like. You're sort of seeing people and catching up, and and then comparing comparing notes about how none of us have any gigs was really therapeutic.
Oh no! Are they finding things to do though? Because I mean, that is
it's funny. I don't know. I sort of found. I'm surprised. I mean, I always sort of dabbled, even in the early days, in recording, and was really interested in computers, and sequencing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised at the calls I'm getting from friends and other fellow bass players, sort of asking me like, "Hey, I got a Mac. I want to get recording into my thing with my bass. I got a chord." It's like I'm really surprised in today's day and age, which is so technologically advanced and everybody's got phones, how little people are set up to like record themselves and do all that stuff.
I know that's the one thing that has really surprised me in talking to so many people, even just during this show, and how many people are just faced with this wall of knowledge that they have to face now in terms of being able to get onto the internet or even just to record and whatnot. But I think that maybe this is a beginning of a renaissance. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
It's interesting, and everybody clamoring to sort of do Skype lessons, which some of it I found funny. It's almost like I'm going to do Skype lessons, and they go on and they think that they're the first person to decide they're going to do lessons over Skype, and they realize everybody else there's a handful of people in the internet world that have been doing it for years and have huge followings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with podcasting. I think listen, the wall seems mammoth when you first decide you want to get into it, and being presented with an emergency situation is sometimes a really frustrating time to decide to get into something,
Yeah, that's for sure. I could imagine a bass lesson from Tarry with his podcast studio. It'd have a soundtrack. It'd have something doing voices, somebody doing voiceovers and everything.
Yeah. Well, we do lots of bass lessons here via Skype still. So
do you too?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, I love that. Well, you're a wonderful educator too, and I'm happy that you're still doing that as well because you've changed a lot of lives over the years.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You've provided us with a little nugget that we're going to play of a live performance of yours. This was recorded pre-COVID, but when was this recorded?
It's a while ago, like 2010 probably. So we're going on, 10 years ago. And this was from a DVD that we filmed at Jazz in Winnipeg.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was going to put it out as a DVD years and years ago, and it just, there's a couple of things the way it was filmed. You'll notice that there's like a weird, like somebody left a door open in the stage, so like the camera goes by and there's like a security guard just sitting outside, like sort of like on his phone.
Yeah.
And so like there's a few things that we couldn't fix, and it's just in terms of visually, I love the playing and stuff. And so I've always just sort of had it in the archives, and I figured that this would be a nice spot to play it for people because it's visual and it's a real concert, and a real it shows my band at kind of when we were touring a lot, touring Europe a lot. We just put out a new record, and we did two more records after this, or one more record after that. Sorry.
Yeah.
And so it really captures the band in a moment. And one of the things I always really made sure of is that when I did a band, that I kept the same guys together for as long as possible. So, you're looking at 5 guys that have played a lot of music together.
Wow. Yeah. And one treat that I wanted to point out to people, you have the world's quietest drummer in this particular song. It's happy for most, but he's just barely touching the kit, but it's so effective. It's really
he's
cool.
Great. Dan Weiss is one of New York's most brilliant drummers for sure.
I'm excited to play this track for everybody. I'm going to say now that Chris Tarry has provided us with this video for Happy for Most, and we're very happy to have it as TD JazzYYC International Jazz Days Virtual Festival. This is a real treat. Thanks for supplying this for us here, Chris. Here's Happy for Most. I have the applause button pushed for you. Chris Tarry and his wonderful band.
Greatest applause I've ever had.
Well, it comes from the heart, believe me. It does come from the heart. And that's probably the weirdest thing about doing these kinds of things, is that you know that there are lots of people out there watching, but you can't hear their applause.
Well, from somebody who works with fake applause every single day, I can say thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Thank you so much for doing that. I wanted to bring up just one last thing before I go over and talk to Jeremy. You went to Henry Wisewood School, right? Here
Yeah,
in
I did.
Calgary. And
Yep.
they had invited you to come and receive a distinguished Alumni Award. And I would go remiss without mentioning that, because I'm sure they're very, very proud of you and wish that you could have been here, but because of the times you weren't able to be here. Is there any note that you would like to send to the folks there at Henry Wisewood?
Well, I really wish I could. I really wish I could have made it. Yeah, it was all planned. I had my guests already booked and everything, and I was looking forward to getting home again. To
I
be
lost
honest,
your sound
it
for
was,
some reason.
you know,
I don't
but
know why.
be a really bad, not bad, but hard time to graduate. I mean, you know, it's such a huge thing. I'm just really impressed with all the graduates I see, even in here, you know, the high school down the street from me. Um, just what they're pulling together to make to try and give that feeling of completion and moving on, and that sort of leapfrog or that sort of springboard that you give yourself, jumping off into the new world. You know, the next step.
Mm-hmm.
When the next step is so up in the air right now.
Well, I'm sure that they are just happy to have any sort of that's a mini commencement speech for you, for them.
Exactly.
And that's
Well, I sent in a little video. I should have combed my hair more, but it looked like it was okay.
oh, I'm sure it looked absolutely marvelous. Well, congratulations on being recognized as a distinguished alumni, and I'm sure that
Thank you.
they would have preferred to have you here with them.
Thank you.
You bet. Chris Tarry, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to zip over and talk to our friend Jeremy Coates here, and we'll come back and we'll have a little high five at the end of the show. Okay?
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You bet. So, Mr. Jeremy Coates is sitting there waiting for us very patiently, very handsomely, I might add. Jeremy, nice to see you.
Hello. Hi, Tim. Hi, everyone out in YouTube land.
The one thing that has changed since you and I just jumped onto this channel is that now you have a belt of sunlight across your belly, and you've never looked more handsome.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that. Thank you. It's the weird time of the year where the sun is like northwest later in the day.
Yeah. You know a lot about the sun because you're an avid gardener, and I love to hear this about you.
It's all a learning experience, but I think I bought this house about 10 years ago, and I just threw seeds in the ground, and it's been a learning process every year. Every year is different, but the challenge is fun, and like we were talking about earlier, it's relaxing, and it's just nice to be outside in our short season growing year here in Calgary, gardening at 3,500 feet.
Gardening it there. You said the most astounding thing to me the other day, Jeremy. You said, you know, you can grow 3 crops of radishes in one season here.
That's right. That's our provincial fruit.
We'll get together for a glass of radish fruit when the time comes.
Yeah, if only I could make smoothies out of those. But anyways.
That's amazing. So it's good exercise and good for your mental health. Is that helping you now during the time of COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at us this particular day. This is May long weekend, traditionally when Calgarians can plant. So this is absolutely perfect. And if I look at the weather, it's supposed to rain, not tomorrow, but for the next 3 or 4 days, which is perfect to get our seeds in the ground now. And then that water from, the sky does so much better than tap water or hose water. So
yeah,
it's the perfect solution to the COVID, because you can be outside in your own yard and get it all done.
And for the first time, you figure maybe even in your entire career, now you get the chance to be able to spend an entire summer probably in your backyard because you won't be gigging, you figure.
It's true. Usually when I travel, like my partner works for WestJet, so we'd go to Romania every summer. That's not going to happen this year, obviously.
Yeah.
My brother owns the house across the street, and he's always like, oh, no problem, all water. Yeah, I come home, and he's basically hardly watered at all, and that drives me nuts. So now this year I'll be able to really overmanage my water supply.
And you'll have bumper crops, I hope. When it comes right down to it, this will be the year of the. Jeremy Coates is going to have his own farmers market, and he can play bass while he's there.
That's true. Actually, I've been giving away. I planted 60 tomatoes, so I've given away about 20 to neighbors, and I've put my own, let's say, 30 outside. So I'm gonna be swimming in tomatoes, hopefully.
The year of deliciousness. That's amazing. So you have traveled quite a bit to New York, and you said that there's a particular address in New York that you love to go to, and you keep on returning back to it time and time again. 42nd Street. What is it about 42nd Street that keeps bringing you back?
What is it? I mean, if you're there, there's great restaurants. If it's Hell's Kitchen, you see something off Broadway, or maybe there's something on Broadway. There's those funky old music stores. And of course, there's just so much going on. Like even at night, it's so safe out in the streets. I mean, there's so much to do early in the morning. Walk down Avenue of the Americas, come out to Greenwich Village, and then of course, wow, there's so much to do as well. So it seems like everything revolves around 42nd Street, or your radius, or where you're going to be. Eventually, you always end up back there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those kind of places that just keeps drawing you back. Is it the music stores that kind of took you there in the first place?
Actually, I did my master's degree in Alabama, so I found myself flying up there for cheap. I mean, at that point, I had an old Saskatchewan plated truck that I'd leave at Hartsfield in Atlanta and fly up. And then I went to Smalls, and then I went to, 55 Bar, and then I saw Washington Square, and I was like, wow. And of course, you always have those memories. So I always go back just to see concerts and stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually toured with an ABBA show for 10 years.
Did you really?
Yeah, we played a lot of corporate gigs.
Yeah.
And, some of the biggest shows I've ever done were bar mitzvahs in New York.
Really?
The production was just unbelievable. So I ended up playing there quite a bit.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
bar mitzvahs of all things, especially with ABBA music. Why not? It's a celebration, right?
Yeah, a bunch of 14-year-old kids with their backs to the stage, and we're playing ABBA.
ABBA is the Switzerland of music, really. I mean, it works with absolutely everything. It's the happy music that works with everything.
It's true. There's nobody that doesn't like it.
Now, since you've talked and told us about what your passion is around 42nd Street, you have a song you're calling "Back to 42nd Street." So this was the thoughts when you were writing the song. Tell me what your feeling is around the song.
It's true. I'm influenced by John Patitucci and Pat Metheny and all these different people, but eventually they all spent time in New York, and you kind of, the first time you're in New York walking along those streets, you think, wow, Parker was here and Miles Davis and all this stuff. So you try to write reminiscing about those things. This definitely is more of an angular, a little bit angry, a little bit challenged, kind of like maybe it might be like to live in New York. And just trying to get that down on paper and in my ears and what that sounds like. And this is kind of what came out of that. It's not something you can tap your toes or sing along to, but it sounds to me what it might have been like to live in New York in the 80s and 90s.
It sounds like a painting or a snapshot, maybe.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to play it right now for everybody. Our friend Jeremy Coates, wonderful bassist from right here in Calgary, has a song now as part of the TD JazzYYC International Jazz Days Virtual Festival. This is his song called 42nd Street, or Back to 42nd Street. Jeremy Coates, ladies and gentlemen, with his song Back to 42nd Street. Very nice. Is that the first time? That's not the first time anybody's heard that. You've had that on a recording?
No, I think that's probably the first time it's been played.
Oh my God, world premiere. I'm pushing the cash register button for that.
Okay, cool.
I love it. Well, it's a lovely tune and lots of stuff happening there. You and Chris Tarry both spent a lot of time in the upper parts of the neck of the bass.
Yeah, what did they tell us? Those aren't the notes we're getting paid for.
You're getting paid for the low notes.
Yeah,
Chris is giving you the thumbs up here. You have students that you provide a very special assistance to, I guess, because you've developed a bit of a technique where you're teaching your students, but as you're teaching your students, you're playing a 6-string bass. For what reason?
Yeah, I mean, when the student is coming along and they're starting to get it, it's still isolated solo bass, and it sounds about that. It's hard to get it in context if you don't put in something behind it. So I should be able to play beautiful piano voicings. I just can't. So I started figuring out chords on the bass and then moving up higher in the register. And then it dawned on me to actually take the low strings off, put a high string on, and I'm actually playing a 5-string bass.
Oh, 5-string.
5-string. I mean, of course, we always have 6 strings and 4 strings. We never sell our basses. But the 5-string, I just ripped the strings off and moved them all up one day. So I string it E to C. And that gave me that tessitura or range to get above the other student playing bass. And then they kind of hear the changes go by, and then it makes them put things into perspective. And it actually works great for them. And I learned a whole bunch of stuff out of it, too. So by default, it was a great thing to do, tuning my bass E to C.
So it would be it'd be halfway between a bass and a guitar.
Yeah, I would agree. I've called it a tenor bass.
Yeah.
I bring to the gig a low bass tuned B to G, and then it'll be a low 5. I call it a high 5.
It's a high 5. That's
high 5.
That's. I think that's a good name for your entire program. It's the High 5 program.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I guess Notes by Coates was my first one, so something to do with high 5.
High 5. There you go. The High 5 technique. I'm a bit of a branding guy, so when I hear something that resonates with me, I usually kind of throw it out there and go, think about that. Think about that.
Okay.
So you're comping behind your students, and that gives them a little bit more of a softer pillow to kind of land on and kind of get a feel for what it is that they're providing on the lower end, right?
It's true. I mean, they're not subliminally maybe even realizing it, but it's ear training for them to hear those chords go by and put it into perspective. So when you are improvising, it's like, oh, now I remember that sound. I can play this over that sound as opposed to this. And they just become more musical.
Yeah.
And I also get us to play to a drum machine, and then we're playing music together. And teaching online, this has been great. But there is that connection when you're playing live, because we can't really do the Zoom lessons where we're playing live together. But it's all been a learning curve that way too.
Yeah. Well, has it been a learning curve now going into doing things like this, and to teach online and to have the ability to be able to, reach out and to kind of connect to people online? You've got a lot of technology around your house now. All of a sudden, you're kind of forced to use it in a new way. How's that feeling for you?
It's true. It was a big learning curve. What's interesting, I haven't had to go buy anything. Everything I have is capable of doing it. I've just never used it in this capacity.
Yeah.
It's like turning your computer around and now I have to be from the other point of view. So that initial learning curve was frustrating, but I never had to buy any software or technology. YouTube has helped a lot, and syncing the audio and the video was a little daunting, but actually the programs are available through Macintosh platform. It was surprisingly easy to let it all fall together. So it was frustrating at first, but now, like Chris was saying, I think I'm able to produce content that actually looks pretty good on my own without leaving my house, which is really cool.
And speaking of content, you have an educational video that's coming out on Monday through JazzYYC. Tell us about the video that you've made now.
I just wanted to highlight the 5-string, specifically tuned to E to C, and let people know it is unique. And if they're looking for a different voice, maybe try it. A 4-string bass exists on there, but I just wanted to show that it's not guitar. It's our own unique bass voicings, and it's a maybe undiscovered realm of the bass. And I think it's really exciting. Sure, we should only be playing the low notes, but we can also play the high notes. And we can play chords in that range. It's kind of like a warm guitar or a higher bass, or it's just a unique sound. So my instructional video is trying to highlight the high five.
He's going for it. He's just gonna go for the high five.
I like it.
Oh yeah. I feel like you've really landed on something there, my friend.
Okay.
You've done a little transcription here of a John Patitucci number. What is it about Patitucci that inspires you so much? And you're playing a 5-string on this, by the way.
That's right, 5-string. I believe Patitucci's playing a 6-string on this. And, he's just such a beautiful example of how bass can be fundamentally this and fundamentally bass and the 6-string. And we can walk on this, we can blow on the 6, and bass is all that. I mean, I also played a little bit of tuba. That's also bass too.
Which is awesome.
It's great. It's all bass. And Patitucci really inspires me to play the upright bass, the 4-string, the 5-string, the 6-string, and be responsible for being the best bass player as well as the best soloist. We can do that all on the bass. And it's any bass. You should be able to get your point across. And Patitucci does it so beautifully. I've always wanted to learn this solo, and this is the perfect time to do it. With a little time on my hands, I hadn't transcribed anything in quite a while, writing it down actually.
Yeah.
But this was a wonderful learning experience, and now I kind of got a glimpse of getting inside Patitucci, and it's really rewarding.
So you might do more Patitucci transcriptions.
I absolutely should.
There you go. Well, let's play this song, this transcription now. It's a little 2-minute number, but it's super interesting here on the TD JazzYYC International Jazz Days Virtual Festival. Jeremy Coates now with his transcription from John Patitucci. This is a lot of fun. That looked like a ball. That looked like a lot of fun.
Totally. It's fun to play along, and when you really nail it, not that that was perfect, but you sound like you're trying to emulate the feeling when you get it. It's really fun.
It's like singing along. Well, it's like singing along with me singing along with Frank Sinatra. He's the guy that I adore, and that's the. I don't know. I think it's so much fun to do.
It's true. It's something I need to get back in doing more. Yep.
That's amazing. Keep an eye open for Jeremy Coates' educational video. I think it comes out on Monday, so that's going to be on the JazzYYC Facebook page and on YouTube as well. I'm going to bring all three of us together again. All three of us together, Chris Tarry, Jeremy Coates, the best of Calgary out there in the world doing the best the music that you can do. And it's been such a treat having you both on the show.
That's some Patitucci blues, man. That's great.
Oh, cool. Well.
Now, just curious, are you gonna get out and shred and see if you can get together maybe on a Skype call and see if you can kind of out shred each other? Or
Interesting.
No, I think Jeremy and I have hung out at plenty of bars, just mostly just like to have a drink at each other's gigs.
Well, there you go.
We had the same teacher for a long time. So.
Did you? And who was that?
True.
It was Dale James.
Dale James. There you go. Dale, yes. Yep. There you go. He's back in town now, isn't he?
Many a young Alberta bass player.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty amazing. Thank you both for being on the show this evening. It's been a real treat. Tonight's been literally all about the bass, and I'm so excited to see that you're both thriving during these times that are a real head scratcher. But as long as we keep on smiling and doing things that are meaningful, that's all that matters, right?
That's true.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. We have some sponsors that I'd like to thank. Just as we're going out to the show, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Tarry and Jeremy Coates, our guests this evening on Jazz Home Delivery. Here's a little shout out to everybody who has supported the 28-day virtual jazz festival.